One third of the league was earning less than $100,000 a year.
I think next summer they will need around 60, 70 million to sign him.
You could just picture this, Fabrizio. It's the most awkward thing ever.
Hello and welcome back on Debatable on 11 Football with me, Fabrizio Romano. As always, here together every week we will be discussing the biggest topics in football, in transfer market, and with someone inside the game. And today I'm super happy to be joined by Nedum Onuoha. Nedum, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Super pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. It's a super pleasure to talk with you, and we have many things to discuss. Thanks again, and congrats for your coverage of Africa Cup. Has been amazing. So we are really curious to talk with you on many topics, to touch on many points of African football, and not only, of course. Nedum, I wanted to start with our statement to begin our conversation at this: not enough players challenge themselves in a foreign country, because your experience is telling us about it. So what do you think about this statement and about this kind of mission for some players?
Do you mean English-based players in terms of leaving the
Also,
Premier League?
Yes, also.
That's a good question, and it's a good statement, because I think at times, we try and go away from this, but the fact is, say, money is a big driver in terms of football, because for some people, the thought of going to somewhere else to have an experience is good, and some of the nature of some of the teams is good, but you can be at home, and it's one of the best paid leagues in the world, and you know it, you know the history, you have your family, you have everything close by. So the thought of going somewhere else, even though it's an adventure, and myself and lots of other people were very much enticed by that. Not everybody buys into, say, foreign leagues and the like, because you know the teams, but you don't know the leagues. Like myself, before I went to the USA in 2018, I spent more time watching foreign leagues than I did watching the Premier League, because that's just what it was. Whether I'm watching Serie A, whether I'm watching La Liga, Liga, Bundesliga, just to name but a few. But that's what I'm doing. That's on a Saturday and Sunday. That's what I'm doing. But not everybody else is really concerned by that. The Premier League is everything to them. And as a consequence, they don't really see the need to try and go there, especially because there'll always be interest at home for them. So, yeah, they don't want to go on an adventure. And I don't know, maybe the question is this: if there was less money in the Premier League, do you think there'd be more? Do you think there'd be as many foreign players coming over to play?
This is a good question, I think.
I'd have to say, I'd probably have to say no. So the money is an aspect, but again, the belief that for people within England that this is the best league and these are the best clubs.
Sure.
This is why they inevitably don't even try and step abroad whenever.
Sure. I wanted to ask you also about your experience in the United States with Salt Lake, and also what are the biggest adjustments? So what is really changing for personal life and about football in general, and in particular in this experience you had in the States?
So the MLS,
yes,
when you think about it as an idea, if you've been on holiday to the USA, you think about the coast, you think about New York, you think about Los Angeles, you think about the coast, but there's a lot in the middle, which is where most of the teams are. So that's the experience that most people will have if they go to the USA, and there's a belief that, this guy's gone over and he's a DP, designated player, so he gets paid so much money. But you only have, I think it's either 3 or 4 designated players, so they're the ones making the big money. But then at the same time, in the years when I was there, 1/3 of the league was earning less than $100,000 a year. That's 1/3 of the whole league. And then the people after that, they're not making that much, relatively speaking, when you consider other top leagues or big top leagues around the world. So I think the first thing that people need to realize is when you go over there, your thoughts on finances and contracts and stuff, throw it out the window, because they do things very differently here. Like even the fact you can be traded and you don't get a new contract. It's just your contract is getting traded and you're going along with it. You could have a 4-year deal, as you probably know, and in 4 years you could play for 4 different clubs but still be on the same contract. So that, you have to understand, it's different. The fact that winning the league doesn't really mean anything because it's all about the playoffs. The fact that if a team isn't doing very well, it doesn't matter. Like, you're used to seeing teams in leagues where there's relegation, promotion and so on, where as the season progresses, they become desperate. They'll spend money. We have to stay up. We have to win this. We have to do that. In the MLS, it's like, well, it's not working this year. We'll just try again next year, because there's no long-term consequence as such. Like most managers don't. It's not like there are tons of managers getting sacked and so on. So from the football side of things, that's one thing. And there are tons of really good players. But I say the difference between the best players and, say, the worst players in any starting 11 is bigger than in other leagues. Because you could have somebody who, say, for example, has won a World Cup that's playing in I won a European Championships, like
Sure.
Insigne is going to be playing for Toronto. But then there could be someone else in the team who was at university 6 months earlier, and they're just starting their professional career at the age of 22, 23. So how do you balance the two when, say, Insigne's been used to playing with players who are all international players, who are all trying to win leagues and so on? And then from a personal side of things, I think you have to just embrace American culture if you want to be successful there. It's very, very different to, say, the way it is in Europe. And even, say, the travel situation. Some people say it's the worst bit about going over because you're flying everywhere. There's no local game as such for most teams. So you fly across country, changing time zones. But for me, I loved it because some of the places where I played, I would never have gone there on holiday because in the summers for football, you don't really have enough time. But now I'm walking the streets of Chicago. I'm walking the streets of Minnesota. I'm in Kansas City. I'm spending time in New York. I'm in Houston, and you get a chance to see it because over there, when you go and play these games, it's more like a business trip as opposed to just for a game of football. So you spend more time there, and I loved it. Everyone said, "Oh, you must be jet lagged. This must be so frustrating." I loved it. I loved turning up, getting on that plane, traveling over there, seeing a new city, walking around, getting a feel for it, getting ready for the game, getting the 3 points, and then even not flying straight back home afterwards. You then get a night in whatever city you're in. As I say, I thought it's fantastic, but for people who go over there, the biggest adjustment in terms of being a professional is expect to travel, and if you're not somebody that likes to travel and doesn't like to be on planes,
Sure.
It's not going to be good for you at all.
No, I feel from your words that it's about the experience, and it's football, but it's not
Yes.
just football. It's about the experience. It's about the person, and not just the football player. So I really love your
Yes.
point on this one. And we wanted to ask you also about the first thing that you went through, the argument you had with Zlatan Ibrahimovic, because it was a crazy story. So if you can tell us what happened there.
Okay, so Ibrahimovic is such an interesting character. You know, there are two sides to him. So if somebody asks me, what do I think of him? I have to split it in two. I'll say, as a player, for the records that he has, absolutely incredible. I couldn't even lace his boots. This is ridiculous. But then the character, some of the stuff that he says, the way he motivates himself. Like, he's a great professional because he's 40 years old and he's still playing. But the way he speaks about certain teams, some of his teammates and stuff, I would never do that. And I know lots of other people that never would either. So I don't necessarily agree with that. And we happened to be in the MLS at the same time. And that season, I remember he said something one time where he said, I am a Ferrari amongst Fiats. And I'm like, having been based in Europe, I'm getting it. I'm like, yo, that's pretty rude. But my friends, teammates next to me are laughing. Oh, this guy's so funny. I said, it's not funny because he's called you a Fiat. He's called me a Fiat. He's called that guy a Fiat. He's called everybody else in the league a Fiat. And they don't get it because it's all about the stars there. You know, so as a consequence, because he's such a big star, he'll be protected. The league didn't even say to him, try not to say this. They then start posting it on their Instagrams, on their social media. And I thought, this is weird. I'm not used to this. I'm not used to somebody discrediting the league and the players and it being celebrated. So then I played against him for the first time. And for the first 30, 35 minutes, nothing was happening. In fact, it was the first half, nothing happened. And then 10 minutes into the second half, a ball went over the top of him. So I stood behind him and let my centre-back sweep it up. And then he just grabbed me around the neck and threw me to the floor. So I was on the floor. I looked at him. I was like, what are you doing? And then he started telling me to get up and started swearing at me. So I was lost then. I was lost. So I then got up, started saying a few things to him. We're kind of going head to head. Referee's trying to say, calm down, calm down, calm down. But I was lost because I thought, why is he trying to make it seem like I'm the bad guy in this situation? Like, I'd not had any issue with him before in the game. So he just did that and thought, I'm not having this. So I was lost. And then for the rest of that game, so we were 1-0 down, but we were playing well. And he was on the halfway line. His team were playing badly, and you just heard him criticizing them all the time, shouting at them. And it was weird. It was a weird thing. But then we had a personal duel where every time he made a mistake, I was laughing. Every time I made a mistake, he was laughing. We made sure that it was like there was lots of talk. I was even marking him from corners. You could just picture this, Fabrizio. It's the most awkward thing ever. The ball's out for the corner, and I'm standing there. He's standing there. We're just standing next to each other because he doesn't really move that much from corners either. So we're just literally just standing there right next to each other in silence. And it's like, this is weird. This is really, really weird. But anyway, he ended up scoring the winning goal. And then he sort of laughed in my face, but I didn't know this till afterwards because I had a very, very calm reaction, but it's because I didn't know he did it. But the picture makes it look quite bad. And then after the game, again, this is the thing with MLS. One of my teammates, he was asking him for a picture on the field, asking our photographer to take a picture with Ibrahimovic after he scored the winner against us, and after he had an issue with me. Like, I'm thinking, this is a different world. But anyway, made it into the dressing room, and about 2 minutes later, I was like, am I having an out-of-body experience? Ibrahimovic just walked through the door. It's just 2 minutes after we've literally gone into the dressing room. And I was like, what's going on here? And then he said, have you calmed down yet? And I thought, is he trying to treat me like a little boy here? So again, I was lost. so I got up and started telling him where to go. And in fairness to him, like the next time I played against him, he was fine. I was fine. It was a good battle. But yeah, it was crazy to say the very least. But he gained a lot of respect then because I gained a lot of respect amongst my team because they realised that I'm here for them. I'm not here for the stars.
Sure.
Whereas for them in the past, it's always about the stars.
Sure. This is a fantastic statement, really. And thank you for telling us this story because it was amazing also to understand the mentality, on this kind of situations with players like Zlatan and like you. But I wanted to ask you also, talking about mentality, we have seen the success of some players like Jadon Sancho, Jude Bellingham moving to Bundesliga. The impact they had in Bundesliga was incredible. Do you think that success is because they took the challenge to move to Bundesliga, to move abroad, in this case to Germany, and to show their skills in another country, another league?
Yeah, I think that's a good question because not every person that goes and takes that leap is successful, but we only ever hear about the most successful ones because there are quite a few youngsters now who are coming through academies who are trying their luck abroad, but then they will come back at like 20 years of age, 21 years of age, and they won't have had the impact that, say, Sancho did or Bellingham did. I think Sancho and Bellingham they're incredible footballers. So for them going over and being in the right situation, it's a perfect fit. I think for some other people, they're really good prospects and they go over, but some don't make the adjustment. Maybe they don't buy into the culture at their clubs. Maybe they don't buy into the culture at the cities and they want to have the home comforts. Mm-hmm. But it's good that, say there's an opportunity to go and try and play first team football wherever it is on the planet and they choose to take it, because these youngsters now, it feels like they're ready to play much earlier than, say, times gone by, especially in places like the Bundesliga where it is physical, but it's also just as technical. And some of these players, they can fit in with that, and the physicality demands are maybe a bit different because the style of play is a bit different. So I like it. So instead of, say, a Sancho going on loan or something to a team that's like mid-table in the Premier League, where the emphasis isn't on playing the nicest football, you can go somewhere whereby the emphasis on playing the nicest football, and he fits in with that type of style and can be exceptional there. But to mention Sancho actually now, it's so interesting being in England because everyone outside of England understands who Jadon Sancho is, and he's got his big reputation and a big name. But as he's come home to England, people are asking, who is Jadon Sancho? Because they've not seen the body of work in terms of him being successful. This is what happens when you don't watch other leagues, because then you'll understand who his world. People, he's failing, is this, is that? No, he's just trying to adjust. He's trying to make his name for the second time, and I think that's the craziest thing, because now he's trying that in his home country. But yeah, I think it's good that they go and get that opportunity. But the downside is, I think for lots of people, they think that is an obvious opportunity because they see someone like Sancho do it. They think they can do it, but it isn't necessarily going to be the case.
I 100% agree with you also on this Jadon Sancho point. It's completely different. Also, the atmosphere, how the press is reacting to your performances, the pressure. There are many things that are completely different. So I agree 100% with your point. And I wanted to touch another point that is part also of your story, that is coming through the Man City academy.
Yeah.
You think it's too comfortable for young players now, today, or have you seen some change on this kind of point for the beginning of the careers of the players?
I don't know if I think some players can be too comfortable for them because they've got some of the best training facilities in the country. They have some of the best coaches, the best chefs, the best buses taking them to games,
everything
the best
is perfect.
gear. Everything is perfect, but the key thing for me is that there are lots of people who acknowledge that everything's perfect, but understand that it's a privilege and not an expectation. So even though the surroundings are what they are, not everybody's going to react in the same sort of way. Because some people might think they've made it because they're in that setup, but even coming through my time, when I came through in 2004, there were plenty of people that thought they made it because they were playing under 17 football and the situation wasn't perfect then. So I think the people who are really, really going to be successful, all the other stuff, like, it's nice to have, but they're not dependent on it as such because they're still trying to find their way. And then as soon as they get into the first team, it's not luxury anymore. You have to try and build trust. And the fact that you've got the perfect pitches, perfect coaches and all this, it doesn't guarantee that that will happen. So I think it has changed. And I don't begrudge it. I don't begrudge it from them. Because again, like I say, lots of players will go through academies and not make it. That's not just at City, that's everywhere. But I think the best players who really will have a long career in the game will understand that where they are is an exception and not the norm. So there could be somebody who's there now getting like filet mignon for lunches or whatever, and then they could go on loan to a team that's in the fourth tier, but then understand that they have to wash their own kit. You know, the mentality is still there, regardless of the fact that the surroundings are different. So I think they are more comfortable, yes, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing because the people who are good enough, like mentally, physically, and technically, I think they'll still find a way through.
This is very interesting. I think also for the future of Man City, they're working a lot on this. Young players, on their structures, on their academies. So it'll be interesting to see what happens also in the coming years on this point. And Nedum, we mentioned when we started our conversation about your coverage, and congrats again of the AFCON, of the Africa Cup. And we jump into African football now with our second statement, that is, African football doesn't get the respect it deserves. You covered for BBC the Africa Cup. What is your feeling on this statement?
I think that is true. I think that's true, but I also think it's true in the sense that the Copa America doesn't get the respect it deserves. The same way, say, the North American Championships doesn't get the respect it deserves. Same for the Asian. It's because when you're in Europe and you have some of the biggest leagues in the world and a lot of the biggest players in the world are based in Europe, you just believe that this is the be-all and end-all of everything. But I think through the coverage that we've just had, as you see the final finished and you see Mo Salah crying, Mo Salah doesn't really cry for Liverpool. I know Liverpool fans will hate me for saying this, but that playing for his nation is more important for him than playing for a club side, regardless of how much he loves his club side, because his club side could decide tomorrow that they don't want him, but he's still going to be Egyptian at that same time. So I think it doesn't get a lot of respect, and people very willing to just like say, oh, it's no good, it's this, it's that. But then I think some of that also comes because it happens during the season, or it's happened during the season this time. So it feels like they're taking away their asset. They're taking away our player. We need him for this game or that game or whatever. Well, so what? Like, this is their country. Nobody's going to say, or last summer, nobody would say, I don't want my player to go to the Euros because it means they won't have a pre-season before the season starts the next year. They would never say it because they appreciate like what the Continental Championships mean to those players. So it's the same thing goes for the African players, same thing goes for the South American players. And I think at times, some people, they sort of lose sight of that because they're so sort of like obsessed, or they have tunnel vision with their clubs and with their leagues. And I think that is everything. But from a player perspective, as from the human perspective, like, it doesn't, it's great. I'm delighted to be playing for Liverpool and everything's fantastic and I hope we win everything. But like I say, next year, you might not be there. They might have moved you on. They might be over you. So what does that mean then? There's no point playing international anymore. And I don't know. I know I'm ranting a little bit. But the way that I think people should perceive it is, for as good as the Euros were in the summer, you don't have a bunch of people all around the world thinking I would love to play in the Euros. What they're thinking is I'd love to play and win my continental championship wherever that may be.
No. But I agree 100% with you, Nedum, also because I live in Italy, and you mentioned what happened with Premier League, with Liverpool fans and many other fans not happy with the players leaving in January. But in Italy was the same, for example, for Napoli, with Koulibaly, with Zambo-Anguissa, with Victor Osimhen for sure. So they were fighting to keep their players at the club, but this is not respectful, and I 100% agree with you on that point. You have to respect, also because, as I told you, I'm Italian, we won the Euros, and we still remember the feelings we had when we won the Euros. So we have to be respectful with African people and African countries, and 100% on your point. You were covering the Africa Cup and you saw a lot of future stars, maybe, because we also have talents for the future. So if you want to mention some players that, in your opinion, could be part of the top level in the future.
Future stars. I'll tell you someone that surprised me, actually. Say in the Senegal team yesterday, I thought the left back was really good, Cease. But he's playing in the second division in France. That surprised me. In terms of young players, I thought the right centre-back for Egypt was really good. There was a number 2. I think it was Abdul Moin or something like that.
Okay.
I thought he was really good. Burkina Faso had a ton of really good young talent. There was a guy who's playing for Bayer Leverkusen, top sober, I think,
yes.
the left centre back.
Arsenal wanted him last summer, and I think next summer they will need around 60, 70 million to sign him.
Exactly. But there were tons. There were so many, and like the thing that people I think struggle with is when they tune into a game of the African Cup of Nations, they don't have the history of watching whichever team it may be. So Burkina Faso versus Senegal, I think it was, might not mean anything to them because they've not seen the backstory of Senegal. Some people didn't even know Burkina Faso was a country. So as you watch them, you've almost immediately poo-pooed them, even though the reality is they're in the semi-final of their championships. You think, it's nothing. So so people don't necessarily cast a fair enough eye on it. And then also add in the context of the style of football that can exist, whether you're from West Africa, whether you're from North Africa, whether you're from the East, whether you're from the South. Like, there's so much nuance to playing on the continent. So there are tons of young players, tons of players who are already in Europe. I mean, even look at the Senegal team to put it into perspective. And to be fair, at this point, playing in Europe isn't necessarily a strength. It isn't necessarily a strength when you go back to the continent to play, because now it's a different style of football from what those guys are used to. When you have a centre-back from Napoli, one from Paris Saint-Germain, you've got a right-back from Bayern Munich, you've got a midfielder from PSG, Liverpool, left wing. Like, incredible. It's top. It's top. So good.
I agree with you. And it's also interesting to see for the World Cup, because I think they have a very, very good team. And I wanted to mention on single players about Mo Salah. We mentioned him, of course. He was incredible. I think sometimes a player is not getting all the credit he deserves sometimes. Wanted to ask you, where do you rank him, Mo Salah, in this moment? And there is a lot of talk also from people saying, like Jurgen Klopp, saying he's the best in the world now. What do you think about Mo Salah right now? And also on Sadio Mane?
For the show I was doing, we had the stats up for the two of them. And I think Salah scored like 40 more goals and maybe has 20 more assists for Liverpool. So you could say he's had a bigger impact like that numbers-wise. But they're both absolutely incredible, and they work in tandem. Seeing both of them on team sheets, terrifying. One not being there and the other still being there, it's like they're still very, very good, but it doesn't quite feel like the dual threat. But for Salah, the start of the season that he had was ridiculous. The type of goals he was scoring, he just looked incredible. And it must be so nice to be an attacker and to feel like everything is going your way. You can do anything with the technique he has, the strength, the speed, the setup for the team he has, playing at home at Anfield, the people feeding him the ball, like 7-8 people could give him an assist. Like that must be an incredible feeling. But I think he is one of the best players in the world. I think it's tough to say at this moment whether he still is form-wise, because he's been away. Other people have still been playing for their club and needs to get back in, hit the ground running and so on. But yeah, he's like, who would not want a player like that in their team? He's a huge impact. He's a huge threat defensively. He will do his bit when he needs to do his bit. But as soon as there's a ball out wide and the ball's coming into the box, Salah's going to be there. Or you see Salah get the ball to his feet and there's open space behind him. Major issues. And this guy's strong as well. You see him, he's pushing. This little guy's just pushing people over. Same for Mane.
Yes.
You just don't. You don't want that.
Yes.
So,
Mane's
I think
yesterday, to be honest.
There's two of the best players in the world. It's very, very hard to rank because you have to bring into account situations and stuff like that, because some other players might not work in some other situations. Sure. But to not call him, if he's not world class, then what chance have you got, really?
Yes, I agree with you, and I think this also the impact we had for Sadio Mane in this Africa Cup will be important also for his future. And we have to remind on my side, on transfer market side, that they are both out of contract in 2023 with Liverpool, so they have to take important decisions for Salah and Mane. And let's see what happens in the coming months, because for Liverpool will be important to decide.
Do you think Luis Diaz coming means that one of them's leaving?
I think it means that they are preparing the future. They wanted to make sure that they already have another top winger in case something disappointing happens with the negotiation with Mo Salah and Sadio Mane. From what I'm told, with Mo Salah, they are negotiating, so they are in an advanced process. It's not done yet, but they are in a process. With Sadio Mane, not yet. And so for Mane, I think it's a dangerous situation. They need to manage the situation in the coming months, or will be dangerous to arrive like in June or in July with Mane out of contract in a few months. So let's see what's next for Liverpool on this point, but it's a really good one. And I think Luis Diaz was a very good business for Liverpool. of course, when we talk about African football, Nedum, I have to ask you about racism in football. Do you think racism is still playing a part in the lack of respect we mentioned for African football? Has been done enough for racism in football, in African football in particular? And what else can be done to help on this terrible aspect of football?
That's a very, very good question, and there are lots of different answers to it. I think the majority of people within football are not racist, but there are enough people in football who are racist to affect the people who are being mentioned and who are being treated in a certain manner. Because, we tend to talk about it when, say, in England, somebody misses a penalty or something, you'll get all the abuse and all that stuff. But some of that thinking exists within football, with coaches, with scouts. Like, no, I don't want this guy. He's a bit this, he's a bit that. But the stuff which they say, they wouldn't necessarily say for a white player. He can't think quickly enough. He's this, he's that. And that's the sort of subconscious stuff which also affects people. So, I don't know. It can always get better in the same way I think the world can get better. And I think in the last couple of years, things have gotten a little bit better in terms of how you can speak about it more openly now. Because I think for most of my life, most of my discussions about race and so on would happen with people who are the same race as me, because I know that other people don't want to hear it. But now there's slightly more of an appetite to want to hear exactly what's going on as opposed to what people believe is going on. But then to talk about racism and say the African Cup of Nations. So you'll be honest, there's some teams who played in it who did very well to qualify, but they're not at the highest stage in terms of performance or anything like that. But the way that, say, people will speak about it is kind of linked to that a little bit, I would say. I'll be honest with you. Because again, we've seen games which have been of a poor standard between, say, traditional European sides who we've all seen before, but we wouldn't speak about it in the same way we might speak about Malawi versus like Comoros or something. So there is something there, and I think for some, it's breaking, just acknowledging and realizing that you are thinking about something in a different way to how you would do if it was with a different race or from a different place which you were more familiar with. So I think racism is there. You hope that it does go away, but then also to have a go at, say, some of the governing bodies, it's just about money. If the money's not affected, you're never really going to find that much of an effort to make it change. So they'll do the bare minimum a million times over. And then you can't argue that it is something, but it's never going to be enough. Because look at how quickly last year, I think it was, the Super League concept disappeared. That's money.
Yes.
Disappeared. Seconds.
48 hours.
Gone.
Yes.
Everyone piled in, gone, dealt with. But then, racism, well, we're going to look into seeing what the best punishment is. We think we'll punish someone like 5 games, or someone can go behind a stadium and then go behind closed doors, and that's it. That'll do. And off you pop and you move on to the next thing. So I think that kind of sums up the situation, to be honest.
Yes, it's very sad, but this is the reality. And I 100% agree with you also on this racist point. Let's hope that something also with African football in particular will change, and we absolutely need it. But as we mentioned, you did a great job covering the Africa Cup. But I also wanted to ask you, to finish our episode, about your future. If we could see you back in football, maybe as a manager, or maybe as a director of football, maybe as a coach, what is your plan for football in future?
My friend, I was very, very fortunate to play for 16 years as a professional, to have to get to work for about 9-10 o'clock and be done by about 2, go and travel and play in some of the best stadiums in the world, have 6 weeks off in the summer, and I enjoyed every single bit of that. But the thought of now having to work from 7 a.m. till you fall asleep, for less control as you watch players out there and you hope that they do well enough to keep you in a job, knowing that there's not enough job security to even potentially move your family around to wherever you are, and the fact you potentially do it for, as I'm 35 now, for another 30, 40 years. No, my friend. No. I've gained back my free time, and I plan to use it responsibly and to maybe see the world again, see some friends again, and gain some freedom. If somebody says, I'm going to go and get married in September, I'd be like, good, because I'm going to be there, instead of, well, unfortunately, I've got a game. So I'm going to make the most of real life for as long as possible. and just disregard that coaching stuff, because some people love it, but for me, I love real life more than I do the football side of things.
Fantastic answer. Let me say, I love football, but when I see this kind of project, this kind of mentality for your own life, this is something that I always respect and I always love. So also the way you explained us about it, and really loved it. So Nedum, really, I have to say a big thank you for being part of our episode. It was amazing to speak with you about African football, African players, English football too. So thank you, and we wish you all the best for your future.
Thank you very much, my friend. Great to see you.
Thank you, Nedum. And as always, you've been listening and watching Debatable on 11 Football. So let us know your thoughts, as always, in the comments. Leave a comment on YouTube or review in every single platform you are watching or listening us, and subscribe to follow us every single week. Ciao.